The Tanaka Tower shimmered like a palace of glass and gold, a place where billionaires came to celebrate their victories and forget their sins. Amora Jackson moved quietly between the opulent suites, her crisp black uniform a stark contrast to the lavish surroundings, her polite smile hiding the bone-deep exhaustion of a double shift. She worked for the cleaning service contracted to the tower and had learned the art of disappearing, of becoming invisible to people who never looked down long enough to see the one polishing their world. Tonight, the tower was busier than ever. The owner himself, Kato Tanaka, was hosting a gala on the main floor. Amora had heard of him all her life, a Japanese tech magnate who had built his empire in America, a man self-made, feared, and admired in equal measure. She'd never met him in person. But when the head of housekeeping barked, "Jackson, help prep the executive floor," she swallowed her nerves and obeyed. The private office glowed with expensive restraint, a fusion of mahogany, crystal, and minimalist Japanese art. Amora wiped down the glass table, humming softly, when something on the wall stopped her breath cold. Behind the desk hung a large portrait of two men shaking hands. The younger man was Kato Tanaka, unmistakable in his tailored suit. The other man, with warm eyes and a familiar, slightly crooked smile that could light up a room, made Amora's knees buckle. Her cleaning rag trembled in her hand. It was her father, Marcus Jackson, the man she'd buried in her heart 20 years ago after the factory fire that took his life. She stepped closer, her reflection trembling in the glass. Her father wore the same wristwatch she kept in a drawer at home, the one her mother said was all that was left. Why was he standing beside Kato Tanaka? Why was this photo in the billionaire's office, displayed like a trophy? Her pulse hammered in her ears as the door opened behind her. Kato Tanaka walked in mid-conversation with a group of investors, his commanding presence filling the room. He stopped when he saw her near the portrait. Their eyes met, hers wide with disbelief, his narrowing in confusion. Amora's lips parted before she could stop herself. "Sir," she said, her voice shaking. "Why? Why is my father in your office portrait?" The entire room froze. Forks paused mid-air. Glasses hung suspended. Tanaka's expression shifted from annoyance to something pale and hollow. Fear. For one terrifying moment, the titan of industry looked like a man stripped of his armor. He whispered, "What did you say?" Amora's throat tightened. "My father," she repeated, her voice clearer now. "Marcus Jackson." Color drained from Kato Tanaka's face. His hand trembled slightly before he shoved it into his pocket. The investors glanced at one another, uneasy. The billionaire, who never lost control, suddenly looked like he'd seen a ghost. And in that silent, breathless moment, Amora knew this was not just a coincidence. Tanaka blinked, his composure cracking before his voice returned, low and controlled. "Miss Jackson, is it?" he said, his tone clipped. "You're not supposed to be here." "I was told to clean it," Amora stammered. "I didn't mean to intrude, but that man," she pointed again, "that's my father." Tanaka's face hardened, but his eyes betrayed something else. Recognition, maybe guilt. He forced a polite chuckle for his guests. "There must be some mistake. Marcus Jackson was a business associate of mine many years ago." Her voice trembled but refused to break. "That's impossible. My father died in a factory fire when I was 6". Tanaka waved a dismissive hand at his guests. "That will be all for now, gentlemen." They left quickly, eager to escape the tension. Once the door shut, Tanaka turned toward Amora, his calm demeanor slipping. "You shouldn't throw around wild accusations," he hissed. "Do you understand who you're talking to?" Amora took a step back, but grief-fueled anger outweighed her fear. "I'm talking to the man who has a picture of my dead father on his wall," she said, her voice rising. "You knew him?" "Tell me the truth," Tanaka exhaled shakily. "I knew Marcus Jackson," he admitted. "He was a brilliant engineer, but unstable. He betrayed us. Stole company property. The fire was his fault." "That's not true," she whispered. "My father wasn't a thief." Tanaka looked away. "You should leave, Miss Jackson. I'll make sure you're compensated for this misunderstanding." I don't want your money, she said sharply. I want the truth. His mask slipped completely. You don't want the truth, he muttered. The truth can destroy you. Stunned by the tremor in his voice, she asked, destroy me, or you? For a moment, the mighty Kato Tanaka looked small and haunted. Leave, he said quietly. Please. As the door closed behind him, Tanaka slumped into his chair. You should have stayed a ghost, Marcus, he whispered. The next morning, Amora was summoned back to Tanaka Tower. Kato Tanaka stood by the window, his back to her. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. You didn't really give me a choice, she replied. He faced her slowly. You look so much like him. Don't talk about my father like you cared about him. I did care, Tanaka said softly. But he made dangerous mistakes. Lies, Amora snapped. My mother told me everything last night. You were partners. You framed him. You stole his work. The billionaire flinched. You've only heard half of it. He wanted to expose classified research that would have destroyed everything we built. So you destroyed him instead, Amora shot back. Tanaka's jaw tightened. Someone had to take the fall. His voice lowered to a whisper. Leave this alone. There are things buried deeper than you realize. Then maybe it's time someone dug them up, she said, backing toward the door. You're your father's daughter, he said quietly. And that will be your undoing. As the elevator doors closed, something caught her eye, a small flash drive, half hidden beneath the railing. Her instinct screamed to leave it, but curiosity won. She slipped it into her pocket. That night, she plugged the flash drive into her laptop. A single folder popped up, labeled Phoenix. Inside was a video dated 20 years ago. Her father sat in a cluttered office, younger and vibrant. You can't just take it, Kato. Marcus's voice shook with rage. We built this together. Clean energy for the world. A colder voice cut him off. You're naive, Marcus. The world doesn't want saving. It wants profit. It was Kato Tanaka. You're selling it as a weapon, her father accused. The camera jolted. There was shouting, a crash, and then a gunshot. The screen went black. Anya froze. Her father hadn't died in an accident. He'd been silenced. Suddenly, she heard the low rumble of an engine outside. Peering through the curtain, she saw a black sedan parked across the street. Someone was watching her. The next morning, she called an independent journalist whose work she admired, a man named Owen Reed. Mr. Reed, she said, I have something you'll want to see. It's about Kato Tanaka and the man he tried to erase. Owen Reed met Amora in a small coffee shop. As he scanned the files on the flash drive, his expression changed from curiosity to disbelief. He watched the video in silence. Jesus, he whispered when it ended. This isn't just corporate fraud. This is murder. My father wanted that technology to help people, Amora said. I have to finish what he started. As they spoke, she noticed a man in a black coat watching them. Owen, she whispered, we're being watched. He didn't turn. Finish your coffee, he murmured. Then walk out calmly. A minute later, Owen appeared beside her on the street, breathless. Definitely Tanaka's security. He knows. A dark SUV had stopped at the end of the street. We run, Owen said, pulling her into an alley. They sprinted until they found refuge on a deserted rooftop overlooking the city. 3 days passed. Owen worked around the clock. This goes beyond Tanaka, he muttered one night. Government contracts, offshore accounts. He sold a weaponized version of the patent right after the fire. Just then, Owen's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You want the truth about Marcus Jackson? Come alone. 41, Meadow Lane, 10 p.m. Amora's heart leaped. That's my father's handwriting, she whispered. Against his better judgment, Owen drove her to an old brick home on the outskirts of the city. Amora knocked, and the door creaked open. A shadow shifted in the corner, and a figure stepped into the light. A man with a limp, his face lined and scarred by old burns. But his eyes were warm and gentle, the same as hers. Dad, she whispered. Marcus Jackson nodded slowly, tears filling his ruined eyes. You grew up, he said, his voice raspy from disuse. Amora stumbled forward, sobbing as she threw her arms around him. How? She gasped. I almost died, he said. Tanaka tried to have me killed. I've lived off the grid ever since. Watching, he pressed a small metal case into her hands. This is the original design. What he really wanted. Don't let him get it. Before he could finish, the crunch of tires shattered the quiet. Headlights slashed across the window. They found me, Marcus whispered. There's a back exit through the basement. You must go. Don't let my life end for nothing. As they slipped into the basement, the front door burst open. Amora heard a man demand, "Where is it, old man?" and then a heavy thud. She covered her mouth to keep from crying out. They crawled through a broken vent just as another gunshot split the night. Dad, she screamed, before Owen dragged her into the woods. They took shelter in an abandoned shed, where Amora opened the case. It held blueprints for Project Phoenix, a design for clean, sustainable energy that could change the world. The next few days were a blur. Owen reached out to a former colleague of her father's, a reclusive scientist named Dr. Audrey Shaw. Marcus was brilliant, she told them. But that technology is incomplete. Tanaka wanted to weaponize it. If it falls into the wrong hands, it could erase everything your father stood for. Before she could explain further, a sniper's red dot appeared on her chest. Glass shattered. As they scrambled for an exit, Dr. Shaw was hit. Find his lawyer. Samuel Finch, she rasped, before she went still. Rage replaced fear. Amora grabbed the case and bolted, sprinting down an alley as an SUV roared after her. She hid on a silent fishing boat, cutting the rope and drifting away from the dock. She was alone now. Her father, Owen, and Dr. Shaw were all gone. I'll finish it, she whispered into the storm. For all of you. The gala at Tanaka Tower was the biggest event of the year, themed Phoenix Reborn. It was the perfect stage for a man who had built his empire on lies, and it was where Amora would end him. Dressed in a borrowed black dress, she slipped through the service entrance, her invisibility her greatest weapon. Hidden in her tray was a transmitter linked to her laptop, preloaded with every piece of evidence. On stage, Kato Tanaka smiled. Tonight, he declared, we celebrate redemption. Amora slipped into his private office and inserted the transmitter into the main presentation console. Downstairs, Tanaka continued, together we will rise from the ashes. Amora pressed a enter. The massive screens behind him flickered to life. Her father's voice echoed through the speakers. You can't sell this, Kato. It's meant to save lives. Gasps rippled through the audience as the argument, the gunshot, and the footage of Tanaka walking from the burning lab played out for the world to see. Tanaka froze, his confident mask shattering. Turn it off, he shouted, but it was too late. The ballroom erupted into chaos as police officers entered. Kato Tanaka, the lead detective, said firmly, "You're under investigation for the murder of Marcus Jackson." As they led him away in handcuffs, his eyes met Amora's. He looked small, broken. He mouthed two words, "I'm sorry." The next morning, headlines screamed of Tanaka's downfall. He had collapsed in custody from a massive heart attack. Amora went to the hospital and saw him through the glass, pale and frail. A guard let her in for 5 minutes. "I wondered if you'd come," he whispered. "You did what your father couldn't. You gave the world the truth." He told her about a letter in his desk, one her father had written for her. Amora returned to the silent, sealed tower and found the yellowed envelope. "My dearest Amora," it began. "If you are reading this, then I failed. But know this, I left because the truth had to survive, even if I didn't. Promise me you won't spend your life fighting ghosts. Build something good from the ashes. Live. That will be my victory." 1 year later, the Marcus Jackson Foundation for Ethical Innovation opened its doors. Its first project was a clean energy prototype based on her father's original design. At the opening ceremony, Amora saw Kato Tanaka in a wheelchair at the edge of the crowd. He had survived, but his empire was gone, its remaining assets now funding the foundation. Their eyes met, and for the first time, there was no anger, only quiet closure. Later, as Amora stood before a new portrait of her father, a single white rose placed beneath it, a soft breeze swept through the room. In that stillness between loss and light, Amora smiled, knowing every storm her family had endured had finally given way to peace.